I'm a 6-foot monogamist who likes chips and dips, and 20,000 people think I'm kinda lit. These are the most pick me, choose me boy lyrics I have ever uttered, but I needed a funny intro that somehow connected itself to TX2, you know? He did that song that was like, I'm a 5'4" man, boop, that boop, 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 boop. And I can't really say that in my intro, otherwise this video will be demonetized. So there we go. That's the only one I could think of. But yes, hello there. Today we are doing the curious case of TX2, that polarizing character on TikTok. But before we get into that, hello there. My name is Cowder's Life, and if you're new to this channel, we do video essays talking about things on the internet and then all discussing it as a team down in the comments section below. So if that sounds like fun for you, please feel free to subscribe. We're trying to beat this ratio. Yeah, and if you're not new here, hello again, old friend. It's me, and fun but distressing fact, this is my second time filming this video, as all of my video footage corrupted. It just corrupted, and I tried to recover it, and I wasn't satisfied with the recovered file, so here we are again, doing this again, like Groundhog Day, but no one else will ever see the other footage, so it's still the first time for you, the viewer. Yippee! But we do digress, let's crack on with the video. Today we are exploring the complex and polarizing figure that is TX2, a content creator that has made waves in the punk, emo, and goth scene, because he hashtags them, regardless of whether he is actually part of those movements. But he is making waves and creating so much conversation within these communities. Admittedly, not a lot positive, but nonetheless conversation. TX2 is known for his provocative and often controversial content, which he himself has openly admitted he makes and designs in a way that will incite rage. It's literal rage bait. He knows he is creating rage bait just so he can garner more views and interactions on his profile. And whilst this strategy has clearly been very successful, it has raised many questions about morals and ethics of content creation. In this video essay, we're going to be exploring the pros and cons of TX2's presence in the alternative communities online, examine his methods, and assess the broader implications for these subcultures and also society in general. So with that, now let's look at some more of TX2's content so we can really paint a picture of this character and some of the stuff he's been up to recently, which will be big points within the video essay side of this video. So TX2 is like a TikTok musician, kind of think Youngblood, but somehow more TikTokified. He is known for inciting or riling up different subcultures by being like, this is the heaviest punk song, or this is the hardest emo song, and this is the insert whatever it is, and then subgenre, because he knows people from those subgenres will come out and be like, no, it's not. Oh my gosh, you're a poser. And because of that, it farms interactions and gives him literally all the attention he craves. He even recently hashtag goth. In no way is this man goth. And that's not me being a gatekeeper. And this just isn't goth at all. Not even a capitalistic version of goth. It's the complete absence of goth. Dear Lord, TX2. But because of his choices just to hashtag these different subcultures without actually out being a part of them or, trying to participate in those communities, lots of people call him out and call him a poser. And lots of more people are now making videos on him online, kind of just calling him out for the way he is going about doing his stuff, which has led to some very problematic moments for TX2 in recent times. For example, in one of his most recent ways to create conversation and farm engagements with his rage bait content, he made this video. The LGBT can't make metal music. Once again, TX2 is genre hopping just to farm more clicks. You're not metal, my friend. And worst of all, this is just really distasteful. Instead of, just trying to be posers within various different subcultures, you're now taking a community that gets so much hate online, and because you're rage baiting with the way you're going about this content, you're not only inciting hate upon yourself, which is fine if you so choose to go about doing this rage baited content, but you're also inciting rage towards a community that already experiences so much hate and so much phobia, and you're adding to that just because, in my head, all publicity is good publicity. Yes, maybe for you and your weird, warped sense of fame, but this is gonna negatively impact lots of people. It will give trolls and your haters an excuse to just be, transphobic or homophobic. And also it takes away from actual metal bands that are members of this community. Another recent example of TX2 being called out for his content is when he sexualized alternative women in one of his TikToks. You know, a demographic of women that are already so overly sexualized. I think he said something along the lines of goth, dommy, mummy, and someone called him out on that. And rightfully so, to add to the over-sexualization of alternative women when you've got a huge platform, so it will further just make it silly, funny, goofy instead of something that needs to be taken seriously, is a really stupid thing to do that just shows you don't really think about your actions. And of course, TX2 gets called out a lot, and you know how he responds? Well, just by manipulating everyone, really. It really does just feel like this self-proclaimed punk.
I'm trying to bring real punk rock energy into the mainstream.
Will just say and do anything to garner the fame he so claims. And yes, while people that attended school with him may say, no, he's the real deal, he's always been like this, I think it clearly shows he's not thinking about the broader implications of his actions at all. And I think that's pretty problematic. So with that, let's get into the video essay. And as you know, I always try and like to see both sides of the picture. And I don't just want it to be a smear campaign, because I do think, in some aspects, TX2 actually offers some positive effects on the world. Specifically, kind of at a very base surface level, a superficial level, for his younger audience that may not really critically think about him, but kind of just enjoy him because he does also spread good things about inclusivity and acceptance. So with that, first I'd like to talk about the pros of TX2 before I get into like the long list of cons and why we should critique him and hold him accountable. So the first pro I'd actually like to discuss about TX2 is the encouragement of self-expression. I think when I first look at TX2, he's this very like palatable, simplified version of being in the alternative community. And by that, I kind of mean he kind of looks like what you would vaguely imagine an alternative person to look like, right? Or at least like what Disney or Netflix would think an alternative person looks like. So because of his like stereotypical look and sound, I think he can be a very accessible way into the alternative communities. As I think something we can all remember, or even maybe relate to right now, is like when you're young, it's very common to feel like so unsure about your self-identity. And I think a very good way to express that is through like the way you dress and such. So having this very easily digestible character being like, you know, I'm alternative and I stand for good things or whatever, at base level, he's a pretty chill character that I think young people will see and be like, oh, cool, maybe I will express myself alternatively, or maybe I'll look at these different things that he talks about. Despite the very valid argument that people say he may not actually be active members within the punk, emo, or goth movements, because he does hashtag them in his videos and mentions them, he might actually raise awareness of those sub-movements, and young minds or people that are trying to explore their self-identity might actually go and look at them and get into them that way. And though they may not stay with him and be a fan forever, he was almost like this friendly little gateway package into those movements where they actually found out about real core members of those movements, which I think is pretty positive. TX2 is like the hot topic of alternative artists. You know, although many people in alternative communities may critique shops like Hot Topic because like it's just considered like the capitalistic take on what being alternative is actually about, they had that purpose of bringing more eyes onto the scene or bringing more people in that wouldn't even usually consider it. And I think that's TX2's purpose in this world. He's like the bridge between being a normal person or, you know, thinking about your identity and what that can mean. He's like the bridge between that and to actually getting into alternative communities and actually having that fulfilling experience when you do get into whatever subculture movement you are interested in. And though for people in these communities, it can be seen as annoying and taking away from actual meaning of these movements is kind of at the detriment to them. I think on a larger scale, instead of a super analysis scale, I don't know if that makes sense, I think he's genuinely a good little thing at face value as long as you don't analyze him and his actions. If you kind of just consume his TikToks, listen to his music, and don't think too deeply about him, I think he's a positive input on those people's lives, specifically people that are looking to, you know, explore their self-identity. And the second point I'd like to discuss for pros is like the character play versus actual authentic self, which sounds weird and doesn't really make sense, but just give me a second to talk about what I mean. You know, with like traditional TV media, you'll get characters in shows and you'll be like, oh, they're so cool. I like them. I like what they stand for. I look up to them, despite them not being like an actual real person, you know, it's an actor in a TV show or something like that. I think there's an argument to be made that's how you should see TX2. You know, I think with like social media, because it's an actual person, they're often using the actual name. I know TX2 isn't his actual name, actually sounds like a make of calculator. But regardless, it's an actual face there and you're interacting with him on his TikToks, in his music, or whatever social media platform he's posting on. You think it's the actual person there that actually represents everything he's saying or doing. But I kind of just see him as a character that's marketing himself to, you know, young audience that vaguely like alternative music, you know? And I think a lot of the time people online forget that content creators are just characters. Obviously not all of them, but I mean just ones that like this. I think because we see as an adult, we're like, why is an adult conducting themselves like that? Some people be like, that's cringe, or it's just weird. It's just like, what is he doing? It's like, well, clearly it's, if this was on TV, he'd be a character on a TV show made for children or like young minds, like teenagers. He's not a character for adults because everything seems so like overly dramatic. It feels very performative, and that's typically something an adult doesn't really want because, I don't know, they know who they are or whatever, or they don't need that like obvious signpost of good and bad. They think critically about things typically, whereas I think when you're a younger person, and this is not to discredit being young because I was very much the same, I needed these people like this, just obvious signposts for like good or like alternatives so I could mimic and copy to help find my authentic self. It's very useful. It's just when I think of TX2 in that light, oh, maybe he's a character, I'm like, yeah, okay, does that slightly mitigate some of his doings, because you're like, I shouldn't see TX2 as, you know, a human, but much rather a character in a show. And just like how you wouldn't come at a character in a show with such totality, you shouldn't come at clearly a character on TikTok with so much judgment, perhaps. You know, say they're cringe or say they're posers, because they're literally just a character. You can choose to digest them or not. However, that point can quickly be argued against. And with that, we now get onto the cons of TX2 in this video essay. Pretty much everything I'm about to talk about now explains why, despite even if he is a character, he's still a problematic character, and that needs to be addressed. So kicking things off with point 1 of my cons list is disingenuous participation in subcultures. TX2 regularly changes his identity from being a punk to pop punk to emo to now somehow goth. Doesn't make sense at all. He regularly changes what demographic he's part of or what subculture he's part of, and that's not, you know, necessarily a bad thing, because, you know, in the alternative community, you can be a member of many different subcultures. However, with TX2, it seems like he just hashtags these things to, you know, gain and farm interactions rather than actually be amongst those communities and actually do something for them or raise awareness in a positive way. He's just more like this commercialized version of being alternative. And because of that, he gets to like umbrella himself amongst all of these subcultures without actually, you know, being an active member of them. You know, he's not doing like these small punk DIY gigs or trying to spread the ethos of that. I know you could argue he actually is probably the closest sub-movement he is part of is, you know, the emo movement or like the pop punk movement. And I'm like, yeah, he's a really commercialized version of that. But yeah, he probably could be argued as to be an emo. And, you know, like I said earlier, his friends from school were like, yeah, no, he's always been like this. But because he goes about it in this very rage bait way, like he said himself, it comes across very disingenuous, and not actually because he cares about these movements, but much rather he just wants to profit off them. And that's not me saying, you know, people shouldn't be able to secure the bag, you know. I want everybody to secure the bag and make money, but it shouldn't be at the detriment of society and the others within the groups you so claim you're part of. What he is doing by creating rage bait content around these communities is detracting from the authenticity of them and literally turning terms like goth, punk, emo into marketing tools for his own personal gain, which is just a bit sad really, especially when they're also linked to, you know, not being about personal gain or financial gain, but putting on shows yourself or staying in the small scene and turning down the record deals because you do just care about the community and you do care about just doing it by yourself. He's kind of foregoing all of that to just literally be a cog in the machine and be an asset to capitalism, which is distasteful. And that's why, you know, a lot of people do call him a poser, because he doesn't actively partake in the communities. And, you know, do I think TX2 is a poser? I generally do think he is alternative. You know, I do think he has passion for it. I also just think he's very motivated by, you know, the validation of fame and money, really. And because of that, that brings me on to my second talking point, which is like the capitalistic exploitations. TX2 on many occasions has claimed he's punk. And you know, punks very famously have this DIY ethos of, you know, not selling out and, you know, really being for the people in their community and, you know, also being very political, by the way. They're a very political movement that, you know, fought against mainstream concepts of how people should live, and they fought against government, and they challenged ideologies and values. Now, TX2 is due to be performing at a festival in the UK very soon called Download Festival. And recently, several bands have pulled out of the Download Festival because it is backed by Barclays, and Barclays are being accused of having a financial interest in Israel's arms and fossil fuels. So because of this, to show solidarity with Palestine, bands are pulling out. However, at the time of currently making this video, TX2 hasn't even addressed that or spoken about it. Now, you would think someone that claims to be punk or within that movement, or just any of the subculture movements, you know, if they think they're really about that, you would thought they would actually speak up and be like, yeah, okay, maybe I don't want to be part of this. You would think that maybe to combat that and maybe not disappoint their fans, maybe he'd put on his own show in London somewhere, like a little independent one, because that would be pretty punk, right? His own independent show, just pull up, be like, yo, come pull up, listen to my tunes, let's make some noise, let's protest together. But no, that wouldn't be very securing the bag and farming engagement for TX2, would it? He would much rather make a sing and dance about someone who said when they see TX2 at Download Festival, they're gonna throw tomatoes or something at him. He'd much rather make fun of that and draw more eyes on him through rage baiting than actually being someone of merit in the punk community. TX2 continues to profit off of hashtagging and being part of these communities. I don't know why I did that. That felt like very like substitute millennial teacher trying to relate to the young people in his classroom that he's trying to teach. Hashtag kids. And that reminds me, in my last video, when someone was like, I can't believe Cal is dad-splaining cosplay etiquette to us. That really made me laugh, by the way. And we are digressing. Let's get back to the point. But yeah, TX2 is just profiting off being in these communities. And because he does get so many views and so many interactions, what it does is it dilutes those movements onto, you know, TikTok. And when you type in, you say punk or emo or goth, his videos are going to come up when they don't really have any relevancy to punk, emo or goth. Yes, they may be alternative in sound and presentation, but he's not really adding anything to those communities. A lot of what you see with TX2 is just one giant contradiction. He says he's for one thing, then does another. It all just quickly falls apart when you don't look at TX2 at very face value, but you actually start to think about him critically. And that brings me on to my second point, which is his problematic content creation. It's actually my third point. I don't know my numbers. Recently, I've felt TX2, through his rage baity on purpose farming content style, has really overstepped the mark and just been completely tone deaf or just, you know, thoughtless of actual members of his community and wider communities. You know, it's one thing saying you're a punk or a goth or an emo. You know, the worst that's going to happen is people from those actual communities are just going to get annoyed and call you a poser and say you're not the real deal, which really isn't going to affect you too much at the end of the day or affect TX2's fans. They may get a bit upset that people call him a poser and give him a hard time, but it's not like anyone's going to be really internally hurt about that, or it's going to promote bad ideologies in society. However, I felt when during his latest escapade of rage baiting, he decided to, you know, join in the LGBTQ plus community. I think it was just a real distasteful step far too far. And it kind of just showed his true intentions, which is, you know, just to get as much publicity for himself at the detriment of others. I'm not denying that TX2 has tried to show his support for these communities and for marginalized communities in general. However, content like this can really incite harmful comments, which in turn harms the communities he claims to support. So which one is it, TX2? Are you an ally? Are you a member of these communities? Or are you just saying buzzwords like every big freaking company does, just to seem like they're on the good team, to see they're on the right side of history when they don't actually care? It's just their marketing team telling them they've got to do it so they can be down with the kids or be an ally. It's starting to feel all very disingenuous and unauthentic. And even if you are a character and it's not actually you in totality in real life, the character still is being quite problematic. You know, these videos like LGBT can't make metal music. What this is showing is a real lack of critical thought and understanding of your influence on society. And I suppose it links back to like my original pros that yes, at face value, a young person that doesn't really think about it too critically, or just a person in general that doesn't think about it too critically, might be like, yeah, that's so cool that he's saying that. He's showing that we can do whatever. But he's going about it in a very rage-baity way rather than a genuine way, which just incites hate and rage. And some of that rage and hate will be directed towards marginalized communities. And also, it takes up space for actual members of these communities that, you know, do make metal music or do participate in these subcultures. It's just like thoughtless content without thinking about the ramifications. And when TX2 does get called out, he shows very toxic behavior patterns. You know, in one video, he said he was going to take his life on live, and that's really toxic when you're greeted with actual valid criticisms to be like, well, I'm just going to log out IRL, because then everybody gets worried because, you know, they don't want someone to take their own life. They just want someone to take accountability. Just do the bare minimum as a content creator. If you mess up, or if you say the wrong thing, or if you hurt someone, listen to their words, understand why you've hurt them, say sorry, and think of a positive way forwards, how you can better yourself. That's literally all people are doing. It's not like there's this like weird cancel culture where it's just like, oh my gosh, you deserve to cease to exist. People just want to see you try to improve and literally do the bare minimum, which is take accountability and show some sort of way that you are improving on this. Dear Lord, TX2. Another way TX2 has been very toxic online is when this content creator called TX2 out for some of his lyrics choices. He then proceeded to make a video and song telling that content creator to kill themselves.
Also, if I need to hear TX2 talk about goth dommy mommies one more time, I'll shoot myself.
That is not rock, that is not punk, that is not standing up. That's being a bully with a huge platform and using your platform to bully others that are just giving you valid criticism. If you are going to be this rage-baity character that's aware they're rage-baiting and people give you criticism because of that, you can't just tell them to, you know, log out IRL. Oh my gosh, just take some accountability. Please, dear Lord TX2, do the bare minimum. And I know people will defend him for being like, well, no, he does other content being like, speaking up for marginalized communities. He's on our team. He's trying to help. It kind of just feels at this point when you look at everything being presented, he's just trying to say the right things and then not actually think critically about any of it, which you kind of got to do when you're a content creator. It kind of just seems like he's trying to tick all these boxes and be like, I'm the good guy. And then when he's called out or criticized, he shows his true intentions and true colors, which is to be really quite heinous, be a bully, and to be very toxic in his behavior patterns. Someone that refuses to be genuine online. They've got so stuck in this character they're trying to play that they've just turned into a bit of a one-dimensional monster. One-dimensional monster actually sounds like the name of a song TX2 would make. Yeah, I'm a one-dimensional monster. Please don't clip that, TX2. The next talking point I'd like to discuss is the over-sexualization of alternative women. And it kind of links on to my previous point because a lot of the reasons why TX2 does get called out is because he does this thing where he talks about goth, dommy, mummies. And now if you're online and you operate within the alternative communities, actually not even that, just in mainstream media, there's this phenomenon going around. That's probably not the right word, but there's this very big thing going around where everyone's like, I want a goth girlfriend, I want an alternative baddie. And typically a lot of the people saying this aren't alternative in the slightest. And that's not to say, you know, if you don't have tattoos or you're not alternative presenting or whatever, if you're not in those scenes, you can't date an alternative person. That's crazy talk. Of course, love transcends superficialness, and if people are connected and their souls entwined, that's beautiful and that's awesome. It doesn't really matter how you present on a superficial level. And sorry if that got a bit deep and whimsical there. I just love love and it shouldn't be this superficial thing. However, the issue with all of this is when these very, you know, non-alternative people want an alternative, you know, a goth girlfriend, it's typically because they see them as an object. They see them as a trophy. They see them as this thing they over-sexualize and don't actually see as a human with thoughts and feelings. They see them as an achievement to unlock in a game. And that's why it's problematic. So TX2 coming online and joking about wanting goth dommy mummies or whatever, which is a heinous sentence that I hate saying, is just crude because it further amplifies and perpetuates this concept of, you know, seeing an alternative girl and be like, oh yeah, I want goth baddie. It's heinous. And if you looked at the comments section in the video I did about the goth community, there were so many comments from femme-presenting goth people being like, yeah, it's hell out there. We always get over-sexualized. We don't even want this to happen. Something needs to change. And now we're getting members of the alternative community, you know, big ones like TX2, who should be aware of all of this and switched on to all of this, further perpetuating those ideas. This is lunacy. This is terrible. This is truly heinous. And it's once again showing that TX2 truly does not care about his actions. All he cares about is getting the fame, getting the attention, farming those views. He doesn't really care about what it perpetuates in wider society, what heinous things he is further normalizing, especially to his young, impressionable fans. Because if you look at TX2's fans and comments, they are typically very young, malleable minds. You know, like I said, ones that probably aren't thinking too critically about his words. And I should state, that's not me bashing young people at all. I never wanted to come across like that. I just, as I stated earlier, TX2 is a very obvious signpost into the alternative community. And so because of that, and because, you know, he does preach about, you know, self-acceptance and self-exploration, being your true authentic self, all very good, valuable things. I think he does very good jobs at that. I think a young mind might overlook the problematic things he does because of just having this character that they can relate to, when a lot of adults they find annoying or they don't relate to. But I never want to seem like I'm shitting on the young mind, because we can all relate to that experience of trying to find self-identity. It's just TX2 on a wider level is doing a lot of problematic things that kind of hurts the alternative community rather than aiding it, which you would thought he'd want to do because he is a member of the alternative community. There, I said it, TX2, I don't think you're a poser. I do think you're alternative. I just think you take from communities rather than empowering them and lifting them up. Finally, as my last talking point, I would like to discuss ethical and social implications. And within that, first we're going to talk about like the impact on mental health. You know, when TX2 does create toxic content, like saying he's going to take his own life or he's saying others should take theirs, it fosters this really heinous environment that can leave people feeling some type of way that really isn't positive. You know, you've got fans that will really care about TX2. And when he says he's going to take his own life, even if it's just as performative to, you know, try and say something higher or make it a part of a bigger point, you know, people that really care about him are going to worry, and that in turn could make their mental health worse, make them feel sad. And that's pretty problematic. He's not really thinking there about how it's going to affect his audience. Or, you know, where he's actually telling people to take their life, you know, and he's got this big platform. And if he's telling one person to, you know, take their life, imagine his audience are also going to follow and, you know, perpetuate that idea as well. So what if, you know, that person does take their life? That would be incredibly sad. I think what I'm getting at here is his responsibility as an influencer, of which he takes none. He wants all the perks of being an influencer, all the views, all the comments, and all the things you get from that, without taking any of the moral responsibility, which is problematic. When you're a big content creator with a platform, you've got to think about the broader implications of your words and your actions. You know, and with the case examples that we pointed out today, such as the over-sexualization of alternative women, the death threats, the saying he's going to take his own life, the hashtagging various subcultures but not actually doing anything for them, just doing it to, you know, provoke a response from those communities. All of these things show a lack of thought or care, and that's really immoral in my opinion. And what that's going to do is anyone that does get upset with TX2 and his content, it's going to generally upset them, and it's going to be at the detriment of their mental health. Like people that have good intentions and they're trying to care in the comment section, so they're trying to explain why he's not punk or he's not goth, or how this rage bait isn't good and it's just further perpetuating stereotypes within these subculture movements. People trying to do good are then going to be met with backlash from his fans. And that's just not a productive, wholesome environment. And that's going to hurt a lot of people and affect a lot of people negatively. Like, I think a lot of rage bait is really problematic because it affects people who are trying to care, who will try and explain in the comment sections why this content's problematic. But TX2 doesn't care. What he cares about is the views and the interactions. So I think what he's fostering is just this environment that just says and does without any critical thought and takes. And I think if you're a member of an alternative community, that's kind of like the last thing you would want to do, surely. But I think in my heart and like morally, and I don't know if that just sounds just like, oh, cow, bro, come on. But gosh darn it, gang, this is how I feel. I think in my heart, you know, and sorry if that's such a corny line, like I'm in an anime, in my heart, but regardless, in my heart, what I'm trying to say here is like, even if you are a character online, okay, that's fine, because I think some people play as characters, or we play into the roles that, you know, get us attention. But say even if you are this character, if you're going to promote harmful ideologies online or incite rage amongst people, I think regardless of that, you should still be held accountable. The person behind that character needs to take accountability and address those things. Because if your content creation is coming at the detriment of other people's lives, which in TX2's case it really is, he's taking from communities, he's also promoting and popularizing odd ideas within the world. At that point, it's not just silly, goofy guy being obtuse. It's silly, goofy guy that's problematic and takes zero accountability. And that's just at the detriment of society. That's just anti-humanity. It may get you the views and the clicks, and you may be up, but like at what cost, my dude? Your take mentality only benefits you and those who choose not to really question what you're doing. And that brings me on to my final talking point within the talking point of ethical and social implications, which is cultural erosion. The thing TX2 is definitely very guilty of. By commercializing and exploiting various subcultures for his own personal gain, TX2 contributes to the erosion of cultural integrity and authenticity within those movements. So like, because he gets so many views, this is what people are going to think punk is about, rather than like its deep historical, you know, impact on the world and being like this political agenda. It's now just loud, shrieky man online that is just playing a stereotype of a commercialized version of what a alternative person is depicted to be like, which is annoying and not good. Sorry. TX2 is a large part of the problem of why there is so much conversation and arguments between people in the punk, emo, goth, or subculture movements, because he chooses to say he is one, and then people from those communities get annoyed and argue online, and then, you know, the young people that are just trying to find their self-identity worry and get upset because they use TX2 as their gateway into these things, and it creates this hot pot of confusion. I just nearly whacked my hat off. And anger, and it takes away from people getting into these movements, because then they get scared because people are like calling TX2 out, and then like TX2, it's just like, what do you do? Oh my gosh, it's scary. And it creates this hostile circle where everybody loses. The people that are trying to call TX2 out because they think he just takes from the communities get upset because they're trying to defend the authenticity of their movement, and then the new people getting into the movements get scared out joining these movements because the person that they thought was part of these movements is getting called out. Nobody wins apart from TX2, who secures a bag and gets fame. Oh my goodness, let's conclude on this beast. When like examining the case of TX2, we've seen like a complex interplay of influence, authenticity, and ethics. While TX2, you know, genuinely may serve as a gateway for some people to explore like, you know, alternative subcultures and movements, and, you know, encourage self-expression, which, you know, I'm all for, you know. I want people to find their true authentic self. That is such an awesome process that we all get to go through in life. Young or old, we can all relate to wanting to find our authentic self, finding our space within the world where we just feel ourselves and feel accepted and validated. That's a great thing. I'm all for championing that, and I never want to stop people doing that. However, in the case of TX2, the way he goes about his content creation and his motives raise serious concerns. The frequent switching of identities, in the sense that he'll just move on to whatever subculture is trending that week or whatever. Which one has he not capitalized on yet? That with the confirmed use of rage bait, the participation of commercialized events, all of this highlights a departure from genuine involvement in the punk, emo, or goth scene. Once again, I don't know how TX2 is hashtagging goth. Well, I know how, you just hashtag goth, but that one's even a stretch for me, and I'm not part of that community. I'm not actually part of like any community. I'm too scared to be a part of a community. I think I'm always scared of like, what if I'm not doing enough or doing too much, or if it seems genuine or not genuine. So the thought of being part of a community terrifies me. I just like being a silent enjoyer of many different things. I suppose people that know me on a wholesome personal level know that about me. But why am I even telling this? This is not about me. Digression. It's fascinating. I love it. Let's get back on point. TX2. What's up with you? Moreover, I do believe his content, you know, in the cases where he's over-sexualized women and his manipulative behavior tactics present real significant ethical issues. And, you know, as influencers wield significant power over their communities, their responsibility to consider their impact of their actions is of paramount. I think my online take of TX2 is TX2 represents the importance of the need for critical thought and evaluation. Authentic participation and support for subcultures should be rooted in genuine values and ethics, not in the pursuit of fame or profit. I think it's good as a community we question who we support and the ideas they perpetuate for further society. And like I said, it's not, this person doesn't deserve a platform or anything. Clearly, TX2 is very good at marketing and creating noise and buzz around things. It'd be just good if he did it with a bit more authenticity and also listened to people when they were critiquing him rather than being rude and just shutting people down and saying horrid, rude things. Basically, just doing the bare minimum will get you a long way here, buddy. Yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. Let's get talking in the comment section. I think TX2 is this very polarizing character. Some people love him, some people hate him. So let's discuss it down below and just have a genuine, open conversation about TX2. There's no right or wrong in a grand sense. I think he can be a useful tool for some, and for others, he represents the degradation of their chosen subculture. So with that, let's have an open mind and get a conversation going, and I will be down in the comments replying to said comments and being part of the conversation too, I suppose. I've been your boy Cowder's Live, and I've really enjoyed this video, and I'm just enjoying talking about subcultures in general. I think as a silent, interested bystander in all of these various movements, it's really nice to be able to talk about them online and share that passion with you all. There'll be another video essay here if you want to watch another video from me, and I shall see you all in the comment section, or at least in the next video. Okay, bye!